Well, we're not going to have fun with this next story. It is a big win for the communist country of Canada and a terrible day for Canadian farmers. The Supreme Court of Canada has rejected an appeal by the Universal Ostrich Farm to stop the killing of its 400 ostriches by the terrorist Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which has been terrorizing them for the past couple of weeks and months. Now they've got the blessing of the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court is not going to hear this. They've rejected that appeal. And now they're on their way to start killing or continue the killing of these ostriches there in British Columbia. It's a sad day for Canada. It's a sad day for freedom. It's a sad day for farmers. And we wanted to bring in David Creighton from Ottawa, Canada, who's been closer to this story and trying to get the message out about this story than anybody. I know you spoke, David, to Katie Pasitny, who runs the Universal Ostrich Farm there, and I know you spoke to her a short time ago. What is she telling you?
Well, Katie is so close to complete exhaustion because of what she's been through. This morning, I called her before I put her on the show because I said, Katie, can you do it? Because it was literally minutes after the Supreme Court put their decision up on social media, up on the internet. They posted their decision. It was just basically 5 or 6 words coming down to dismissal, and that was it. And so Katie came on the show, and of course, she was very, very distraught. She was in tears. And she said that the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, I know you were having a little trouble with that one, but
I don't even want to give them. I don't even want to pronounce their official name.
It's kind of like the CIA with an F in it, and you can guess what the F stands for. But this is an organization that was setting up guns this morning. Katie said that they were setting up guns in the midst of this hay bin death area that they have erected there. Yeah, you can see it in the picture. This is bales of hay that they piled around, and it's being called a death zone, death pit for the ostriches. And apparently the CFIA have set up automatic rifles or some kind of, I don't think these are machine guns, but it looks like their intention is to shoot the animals. We thought for quite some time that they were going to gas the animals, as they usually have done, using carbon dioxide. But I think it would be a logistical nightmare to get them off of the farm in trucks, to truck them to a site where they could do this. So I think that's probably what they're doing. I'm not seeing any new footage from the farm today. They've sealed it off entirely. I don't even know if people are able to get up on that hill where that last video was shot from a very good vantage point using a zoom lens, because they have done everything to seal the area off and done everything as clandestine operations, usually at night. But I'll tell you this, Clayton, it's interesting. What I'm hearing today is that the count of ostriches, remember we started at 399 at the beginning of this whole horrid affair, and people are saying today that they can't see more than 100 ostriches.
So they've already been killing a lot of them.
This is what I have been saying for weeks. And all of my compatriots in the new media are saying, well, we can't prove it. We can't prove it. How do you know they're killing them at night? So I'm saying, well, what about the sounds they're hearing, the blending sounds, the grinding sound, the machinery they've trucked on to the site, and the fact that people are counting the ostriches from a vantage point, and they're not getting anywhere near 300. And today they're getting near 100. So, of course, Clayton, now that the CFI has been given the go-ahead by the Supreme Court of Canada to initiate their slaughter, we're not going to know what they were doing illegally, potentially, during the last 5 weeks. If they harmed a single feather of one of these ostriches, they were violating the Supreme Court order. But how are we going to prove that now, Clayton? Because they've been given authorization to just get rid of them. They don't have to account for how many they're getting rid of. They don't have to say anything publicly. They have refused to even give a count. They have said in an update on Halloween, they issued an update saying, we're not sure how many ostriches are there. We don't seem to be able to count. It seems like there's maybe 300, maybe 330, maybe somewhere in between, but we really can't count that well. They can't do anything very well except kill. They have no expertise in animal health, veterinary skills, agriculture, or anything. These are a bunch of the most incompetent government workers I've ever seen. And when they're confronted by people about the health of the animals, they don't know what in the hell they're talking about. So what are they up to? Second thing I definitely can say is very, very fishy. This, as Natalie likes to say, does not pass the smell test. Within literally minutes of the Supreme Court announcement, the CFI had a news release out stating categorically that they were going to start the cull. And they were going to do it to preserve public health because the farm was a disease site. And I'm saying, you damn well know there was no disease on that farm. You clowns didn't put on your hazmat suits for 2 or 3 days until you realized it wasn't looking too good for public relations. You know this is not a health issue, but you've got the damned gall to put this in a news release and then put the news release out within minutes of the Supreme Court making its decision. Was there collusion between the Supreme Court and the CFIA? Good question. I think there were leaks going on from the Supreme Court to the CFIA. They knew damn well where the court was going, and that's why they were doing this independent, totally unauthorized, completely illegal killing process using their bird blenders and whatever else the hell they were doing in the last 5 weeks in the wee small hours of the morning, trucking stuff out of the farm at 2:30, 3 o'clock a.m. What was going on? They knew they were going to get away with this. I said this from day one. They knew the government was behind them. The CFIA, as you say, yeah, it certainly behaved like a terrorist organization. But this is an organization that's not only off the rail and rogue, but it's an organization that represents the fascist government of Marxist carny. That's a little bit of a contradiction. But in the end, I think the extreme right and extreme left come together in this government we have today. Because this government we have in Canada is off the rails. It is rogue. And, you know, in your introduction, you said Canada wins. Well, I think the government of Mark Carney wins here. Canadians are not winning. Yeah. Farmers are not winning. They have basically been told today, your property is not safe, your livestock is not safe, your livelihood is not safe, your reputation is not safe. Katie and her family not only had to endure lawfare for a year, as all opponents of governments in this Western world have to endure if you don't agree with their narrative. They not only had to endure the harassment, the intimidation of these CFIA goons and the constant interruption of their life, the fact they couldn't feed their animals, care for their animals, do anything to do that they always had done for this herd. But they had their reputation smeared by bots that were, I'm damn well sure, and I'm on the verge of being able to prove this, that were bought and paid for by the CFIA and Agriculture Canada. I know damn well what was going on here. They were just as they did in a freedom convoy. They had people out in social media defaming this family, defaming Katie, defaming everybody associated with this, coming up with ridiculous stories, fake news, misinformation, disinformation, all the things they always accuse independent media and conservative media, small c conservative media, of promulgating. They were up to this. And I tell you, you know, one of my favorite movies is 12 O'Clock High. I'm a military guy. I was an Air Force officer. And you remember in that movie at the beginning, there's a colonel who's just given it all. And he just can't give any more. And the general says, I guess you've given all you have. You know, and I have been in daily contact with Katie since this whole thing began, not just 5 weeks ago, but beginning in April when things started to heat up with the lawfare. She has given her heart and soul into this fight. I don't know how she has been able to go day after day after day fighting this battle in the way she has and the way she has done it with an articulate, moderate, completely well-fashioned key messages. She's done it so superbly. She's done it so well. And yet she has been under this kind of crisis management pressure that most people can only endure for maybe a week. She's been going through this for weeks, for months, and it's incredible that she's still holding up. And she was able to come on my show today. I'm glad she didn't have to come on this afternoon because I have seen the footage she's put out today, and she is just in tears over what's happening. This could potentially be the loss of a family farm. They're losing every last ostrich, and it's not clear if they're going to be reimbursed by the government for these ostriches because they chose to fight it. That might well have made them exempt from that restitution. This remains to be seen. The Supreme Court announcement today said they're going to be also docked for the costs of this legal. So they're going to be on the line. I think if I'm reading that Supreme Court order correctly, they're going to be on the line for the legal costs incurred by the government.
Philip has a question here. Go ahead, Philip.
Yeah, so I'm curious. So you said they put out a press release, and it got me wondering. Like, so it sounds like they're championing this. Is there public support? Like, is this genuinely in Canada, like everywhere news, or do a few people know about it? Like, who are they like wanting to cheer them on? Are people cheering them on? Are people seeing this as a good thing, like the government narrative?
There are people, yes, largely the baby boomers, the geriatrics who voted for Mark Carney. They think this is great and they also approved of the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy. Clamp down on these truckers. We don't want to hear this talk about freedom and stopping the vaccine mandates. It's the same people who are applauding this. Why? Because they were standing up to the government and saying, my land is my land. This is my private property. This is my farm. This is my 58 acres. I own it. Government, get off my land. Stop stealing my livestock. Stop stealing my livelihood. But there are Canadians who agree with this today. Was the story well known? Oh, yeah. Thanks to Katie. And, I have to take some credit myself. I push this story every day on my broadcast. Not the whole broadcast, but I didn't miss a day for the past 60 days, at least, where I didn't mention what was going on at this farm and the fact that it wasn't just about one farm. It was about property rights and human rights and individual rights for all Canadians, all homeowners, anybody who thinks they have any kind of democratic value left in this country. That's who this fight was about. Katie never missed an opportunity to talk about that. And this morning I thanked all of those broadcasters in the new media, the independent media, who tried to get the truth out about this, who tried to talk about the fact that this was a gross overreach by the federal government against farmers and against ordinary Canadians. I praise the work of Redacted for doing so much to get the word out to a mass audience. Believe me, there are millions of Canadians watching this story today. I would say, based on the response that I'm seeing nationwide, it's probably about 60-40 in favor of the farm. I don't think this has been a good public relations exercise for the Mark Carney government. I think it makes them look not just small and extremely short-sighted, but brutal, mean, and absolutely without any empathy or sympathy for ordinary Canadians. And again, it reinforces what the Trudeau-Carney regime has been doing for 10 years now, waging war against agriculture and farmers. They have done so much to make life difficult for farmers. It's like they just think that grocery store gets its food from a magic suppository, and it's got nothing to do with farmers growing it or producing the meat, the cattle, the sheep, the pigs, that are all part of the food chain in this country, but the Liberals don't seem to think that's important. And farmers do not feel like they're valuable, like they're appreciated. Certainly, these farmers in Edgewood, BC, at Universal Ostrich Farms, know they're not appreciated. Know they have been vilified, attacked, and harassed and assaulted by this federal government that has no conception anymore about foundational freedoms in Canada, about what it means to be a free Canadian. God damn, I hope there's a day again when I can stand up and say, I am a Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak my own mind, as John Diefenbaker said in 1962 in the Canadian Bill of Rights. We don't have that assurance anymore in this country. As you've said so often, Clayton, Canada is cooked, not just by what happened here today, but by the fact we've got 4 surveillance and censorship laws in front of Parliament, which will pass because he's got the votes with the opposition New Democrat socialists who will back those bills up. Which is why I say the only hope in terms of the short term is to have an election, new elections, which are possible over this budget this week. But Canada has never been in a worse situation in terms of preserving its fundamental democratic way of life, which we're vastly close to losing right now.
Yeah, I'm without words. Many people in our chat room, Bargarla says, Canada used to be such a nice country. It's gone now. And you're just watching it collapse in real time. David Creighton, thank you so much for all of your work on this. Please give our best to Katie and the family there at the Universal Ostrich Farm. And we were hoping upon hope that we could change it and do what we could here. We know the United States, we know RFK Jr., we know, so many people in the Trump administration were trying to put a stop to this, but at the end of the day, Canada is going to Canada, I guess, at this point. David, thank you for this. Thank you for all your work on this, and God bless.
God bless you too, Clayton. Thank you for all the work you did on this, and I'll pass that on to Katie. Thank you so much.
All right, give her our love. Thanks.